we've removed the tenderloin or the filet mignon from the back of the hip against the backbone, and you can see the place where it was taken from. You can see the other muscle, and we're going to take this very, very excellent piece of meat and we're going to talk about butchering it. We're also going to take the heart and the lungs, which we removed, or the heart and the liver, which we removed from the inside of the deer when we field dressed it, and talk about butchering those two pieces of meat too. So Al, if you'll help us with butchering these pieces of meat, but before we do some butchering, I guess we want to talk about preparing a cutting surface and some knives and
Sure, Glenn.
doing a good clean job of that?
You bet. I've done a couple of things in terms of getting ready for cutting venison here. We're going to use a plywood cutting board today, and it's really important that you begin by cleaning and sanitizing any wood surface that you use. You could also choose to use a plastic board like I have here. Either one is fine, okay? But what I have done previous to coming on here is I've used a detergent and water, combined the two, washed the board with a stiff plastic scrub brush, rinsed it well, and then I have used a chlorine bleach. Good rule of thumb is about 1 ounce per gallon, and rinse that board and then allow it to air dry before we start. That's what I've done. We've also got a couple of gloves here which I'm going to use. These are made of aramid fibers and are used primarily for protection. I have a knife side glove which is a little thinner and helps me feel
That's nice.
a little bit better. And then I have my hand side, or what I'll be cutting into. Now the advantage to these is that I hopefully won't by accident cut myself. The third thing that I have is a steel. I recommend a steel like this and something with protection from the hand. This is a diamond steel, okay? I like the diamond steel because I can sharpen as well as straighten those knife edges, and that's very important, and if I do happen to slip, I'm protected, okay? I always hold it away from myself so I don't cut into my body also. Now, with that in mind, let's begin with the tenderloin here. And there's not too much you can do with a tenderloin this size. And in terms of a venison carcass, I would trim as much fat as possible, and that becomes dog food or inedible product. And then the tenderloin itself is very edible. Here, then, if it's from a larger animal, you can cut it into steaks. I would say approximately 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. We're going to cut these into a stir fry or
that would be,
or something that would be like a medallion, and hopefully something that we can then use, cook very quickly. And
and that tender meat like that, cut into small pieces like that, would stir fry and be just excellent, excellent eating.
You bet, you bet. Now, in larger ones, you can also tie them together as roasts. However, in terms of a roast, something this small, I guess I'd avoid that. Let's also take a look at that liver and the heart. One thing is that we would recommend is looking at the heart. Bear in mind that if you're going to butcher the heart and the liver, be looking for spots, generally white type of spots. That's an indication of flukes or worms in the liver or heart. And this is the first place you would see them. Now, from a safety standpoint, you're not going to get the heart worms or the liver flukes, but from a sight-wise standpoint,
just from an aesthetic point of view.
yeah, and from a safety standpoint, we'd avoid that.
Right.
There's a major artery in the liver, and we generally trim that out because that contains heavy connective tissue. for purposes of demonstration here, I'm going to cut the liver in half, and then it's just a matter of cutting.
Oh, nice thin slices
Nice
like
thin
that.
slices,
Yeah.
you bet. Now, liver slices generally serving 3 to 4 ounces, and I'm guessing here that to get a 4-ounce 4-ounce portion, 3 to 4 ounce portion, we're going to have about 3 slices, like so. I'll cut another one. This liver is very nice and from a healthy animal.
Yeah, nice color,
Nice
no
color,
discoloration.
no problem.
And Al, I love these in deer camp, fried up in a little bit of margarine or butter with some onions, cooked just very quickly, thin sliced like that.
You bet.
That's excellent.
You bet.
Now, I don't make much use of the heart. I have to admit, I really don't use the heart meat. But for those who would be interested, could you show us how to butcher that so that it does produce an edible cut?
Okay. Many people will use heart muscle gland for a chili product. We see less of it in sausage or something like that. But what you would do is remove the fat, and that's the whiter material on the surface. You've also done a pretty good job of removing the arteries or the heavy connective tissue here. But I would remove this fat, like
you can
see here.
How
And
good a sharp knife helps do that too.
It's helpful. You bet. Now, the other thing that I would say in terms of cutting a heart is we generally try to open it up. The reason you do that is because most likely there could be some blood inside, and you'll want to clean
Yes,
that
there
out
is.
and remove it. Okay. The other reason for that is the heavy valve connective tissue, and you'll want to remove some of that. Now, for sake of swiftness or getting things done here, I'll just begin. And again, thin slices are something that then can be sautéed, either moist or dry heat cookery, and something that people will use. Other people will slice it this way to have larger slices.
Oh, yes, I've seen
It's your call either way on something like that. One other thing that's important, and maybe we should discuss just briefly now, is these products need to be clean. If there's any indication of stomach contents, it's important to wash ahead of time. If you remember here this recent spring, there were some problems with ground beef.
Oh,
And,
yes. Yes.
A bacteria called ECO157H7. This bacteria is common in the stomach or in the rumen, if you will, of beef animals, pork, also venison. Okay, so if you've gut shot that animal, you run the risk of this type of contamination.
And
so
these pieces of meat would be the ones that would be most likely contaminated.
that's
by
correct.
That.
That's correct. So what do? Pitch it?
Oh, is there a way around it to avoid that? I would hate to pitch the tenderloin.
Well, I think it's really important that the consumer understands that this is something that needs not be thrown away. What needs to happen is that it needs to be correctly cooked. Okay, and if you bring this product to 155 to 160 degrees internal temperature, which is about medium well, you have, along with an insurance policy, destroyed this type of bacteria.